A country where one woman is killed every 10 minutes by her own husband or family. A country where being born into the wrong caste can mean a lifetime of violence and exclusion. A country where 60,000 people have been displaced by ethnic violence in a single state. And the United Nations is told to look in the mirror. A country where the world's largest democracy is dimming its own civic space. This is India today. We base these videos on the analysis of real cases of people facing persecution in their home countries. We are country expert witnesses from London focusing on human rights violations. We receive cases from major law firms who represent asylum seekers in the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, and the European Union. Our goal is to prepare evidence-based assessments and expert witness reports for asylum tribunals. Today, it is a story about India, a country with 1.5 billion people, a vibrant democracy on paper, but a country from which thousands of people seek asylum every year. If you are an asylum seeker or a legal representative looking for a country expert witness, you will find a verified list of qualified professionals covering all major regions of the world via the link in the description below. To understand why people flee India, you need to understand three things: India's caste system, India's religious tensions, and India's state apparatus. India became independent from Britain in 1947. The country was partitioned. Hindus and Muslims were separated by violence. Between 1 and 2 million people died. Women were targeted with mass sexual violence on both sides of the new border. This trauma never left. India was founded as a secular democracy. The Constitution of 1950 banned untouchability. That means the caste-based exclusion of Dalits, formerly called untouchables. Article 17 of the Indian Constitution explicitly outlawed it. The Constitution also recognized scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, historically marginalized groups, and reserved seats for them in education, employment, and parliament. On paper, India is one of the most progressive constitutional systems in the world. Article 14 guarantees equality. Article 15 prohibits discrimination on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Article 21 guarantees life and personal liberty. But the gap between paper and reality is enormous. India has a sophisticated legal system. India has a free press. India has free elections. And yet, domestic violence kills tens of thousands of women a year. Caste violence is documented in every state. Religious minorities, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, face increasing attacks. Tamil and Manipuri ethnic communities have been displaced by ethnic violence. In recent years, things have shifted. Since 2014, the political climate has hardened. The current government has been accused by the United Nations itself of restricting civic space, harassing journalists, and weaponizing laws against minorities. In March 2025, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, named India directly in his global update to the Human Rights Council. He spoke about Kashmir. He spoke about Manipur. He spoke about restrictive laws and arbitrary detention of human rights defenders.
I am concerned by the use of restrictive laws and harassment against human rights defenders and independent journalists, resulting in arbitrary detention and a diminished civic space, including in Kashmir. I also call for stepped-up efforts to address violence and displacement in Manipur based on dialogue, peace-building, and human rights.
India responded immediately. The government rejected the UN's findings. They called the concerns unfounded and baseless. The world's largest democracy refused to accept that there is a human rights problem at all.
Unfounded and baseless comments in the update contrast jarringly with ground realities. The people of India have repeatedly proven wrong such misplaced concerns about us.
This is critical for asylum cases. When the United Nations documents a problem and the state denies it exists, the state cannot protect you. There is no remedy. There is no investigation. There is no recognition. Internal protection mechanisms break down. And this is where we are today. Let me show you who is in danger. If you are in India and you belong to any of these groups, you may be at risk. Women facing domestic violence, especially in rural areas, low-income households, or marriages with dowry disputes. Dalits and Adivasis. Members of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Religious minorities, Muslims, Christians, and Sikhs in certain states. Ethnic minorities. Tamils, Manipuris, Nagas, Kashmiri Muslims, people in inter-caste or inter-religious marriages facing honor violence from their own families, women who refuse forced or arranged marriages, LGBT people, particularly transgender and gay individuals in conservative regions, human rights defenders and journalists, especially those covering Kashmir, Manipur, or government corruption, political opposition activists facing UAPA terrorism charges, whistleblowers, and anti-corruption activists. Anyone who has converted away from Hinduism in certain states. If you recognize yourself in this list, keep watching. If you are in a similar situation, you can find a list of country expert reports on our website and use them in your asylum claim. You can also find a verified list of country expert witnesses on our website. Link in the description. Domestic violence in India is not rare. It is the most common form of violence against women in the country. India's own National Crime Records Bureau, the NCRB, recorded over 445,000 crimes against women in 2022. Almost 1 in 3 of those, over 144,000, were cases of cruelty by the husband or his family. Most cases never reach the police. Police often refuse to register cases. They send women back home to reconcile. They tell families to handle it privately. Dowry deaths, where a woman is killed because her family did not pay enough dowry, number in the thousands every year. And the United Nations confirms this is a global pattern, but India is among the worst affected. Quote, every 10 minutes, one woman is killed by an intimate partner or family member.
Every 10 minutes, one woman is killed by an intimate partner or family member, while cases remain largely underreported and insufficiently prosecuted.
On paper, India has strong laws. The Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act of 2005, known as the PWDVA, defines domestic violence broadly. It includes physical, sexual, verbal, emotional, and economic abuse. Section 3 of the Act covers all of these. Section 4, 98A of the old Indian Penal Code, now Section 85 and 86 of the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita of 2023, criminalizes cruelty by a husband or his relatives. Maximum punishment, 3 years in prison. The Dowry Prohibition Act of 1961 criminalizes giving and receiving dowry. The problem is enforcement. The UN High Commissioner has been clear. Laws exist, but they are insufficiently prosecuted. Police complicity, judicial delays, social pressure on women to stay. All of these mean that the legal protection is largely theoretical. India has the world's largest population of Dalits, over 200 million people. Historically called untouchables, they are at the bottom of the caste hierarchy. The caste system was officially abolished in 1950, but it never disappeared from social life. Dalits face violence every day. Crimes against Dalits include rape, murder, public humiliation, and forced labor. The NCRB recorded over 57,000 cases of crimes against scheduled castes in 2022. The conviction rate is shockingly low, under 10% in many states. Dalit women face triple discrimination for caste, for gender, and for poverty. Sexual violence against Dalit women is endemic. Investigations are often delayed or dismissed. Intercaste marriage, especially when a Dalit man marries an upper caste woman, can trigger honor killings sanctioned by village councils called Kap Panchayats. In July 2024, the UN Human Rights Committee, the body that monitors implementation of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, reviewed India's record. It expressed serious concern about ongoing caste-based discrimination and violence, particularly targeting Dalits and Adivasis. The committee specifically named lynching, mob violence, and forced displacement of Dalit communities.
Other communities face deep-seated, caste-based discrimination related to work and descent.
Article 17 of the Indian Constitution abolishes untouchability. The Protection of Civil Rights Act of 1955 and the Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes, Prevention of Atrocities Act of 1989, known as the SCST Act, make caste-based violence a serious criminal offense. Penalties range from 6 months to life in prison. But the UN Human Rights Committee found that these laws are inadequately enforced. Conviction rates remain low. Police often refuse to register cases under the SCST Act. The practice of manual scavenging, in which Dalits are forced to clean human waste by hand, continues despite being legally banned. Kap panchayats, informal village councils that order honor killings, operate without legal authority but with social impunity. There is no specific national law banning Kap panchayats. Honor killings happen in India. They happen often. They are not always called by that name. When a young woman marries outside her caste, outside her religion, or against her family's wishes, she risks her life. Her parents, brothers, uncles, sometimes the entire extended family, may decide that her behavior has dishonored the family. The solution, in their view, is to kill her, and often the man she married, and sometimes their child. Kap panchayats, caste-based village councils, mainly active in northern Indian states like Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, and Rajasthan, issue fatwas demanding the killing or social ostracism of intercaste couples. Forced marriage is also widespread. The legal age of marriage in India is 18 for women, 21 for men. But child marriage continues, particularly in rural areas. The UN Children's Fund estimates that India is home to 1/3 of the world's child brides.
And for children marginalized by their ethnicity or their socioeconomic migration or disability status, the situation is far worse. We are letting children down instead of lifting them up.
India does not have a specific law against honor killings. The crimes are prosecuted as ordinary murders under Section 101 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the new Indian Penal Code of 2023. Maximum punishment, death or life imprisonment, but conviction is rare. Families close ranks. Witnesses change testimony. Local police are often related to or beholden to the killers. The Supreme Court of India has repeatedly ordered the central government to enact a specific law against honor killings. No such law has been passed. The Prohibition of Child Marriage Act of 2006 makes child marriage illegal. The Special Marriage Act of 1954 allows interreligious and intercaste marriages without family approval. But registering such marriages requires public notice, which puts couples at risk of attack before they are even married. Two ethnic crises stand out in modern India. First, the Tamil community, particularly in Tamil Nadu and adjacent regions. Many Tamil refugees came from Sri Lanka during and after the civil war that ended in 2009. India hosts approximately 90,000 Sri Lankan Tamil refugees. They face statelessness, restricted rights, and limited paths to citizenship. Some are still in camps after 30 years. Indian Tamils have also faced periodic targeting. Tamil political activists, particularly those linked to historical separatist movements, face surveillance and arrest under counter-terrorism laws. Second, Manipur. Since May 2023, the northeastern state of Manipur has been engulfed in ethnic violence between the Meitei community and the Kuki-Zo tribal community. By late 2024, at least 260 people had been killed. Over 60,000 people were displaced. Reports of sexual violence, including the public stripping and assault of women, shocked the world. Houses were burned, villages destroyed. The UN High Commissioner has called for action on Manipur.
I also call for stepped-up efforts to address violence and displacement in Manipur based on dialogue, peace-building and human rights.
In February 2025, the Chief Minister of Manipur resigned after 20 months of continuous violence. President's rule was imposed, meaning the central government took direct control. The Armed Forces Special Powers Act, known as AFSPA, gives the Indian military broad immunity in disturbed areas, including Manipur, Nagaland, and parts of Jammu and Kashmir. Soldiers cannot be prosecuted for actions taken under AFSPA without prior central government approval, which is almost never given. The UN Human Rights Committee, in its July 2024 review, voiced specific concern about AFSPA, calling out widespread human rights violations, including unlawful killings, prolonged arbitrary detention, sexual violence, forced displacement and torture in disturbed areas such as Manipur, Jammu and Kashmir, and Assam. The Foreigners Act of 1946 and the Citizenship Act of 1955 govern refugee status. India is not a party to the 1951 Refugee Convention. Sri Lankan Tamil refugees have lived in India for decades without formal refugee status. India is constitutionally secular, but in practice, religious minorities are under increasing pressure. Muslims, about 14% of the population, face mob lynching, particularly accusations of cow vigilantism. That is, attacks based on rumors that a Muslim has slaughtered or transported a cow. The UN Human Rights Committee specifically recommended that India outlaw cow vigilantism. Mob killings have been documented across multiple states. Christians, about 2.5% of the population, face attacks on churches, anti-conversion laws in many states, and arrests for alleged forced conversions. The Christian community in states like Manipur, Odisha, and parts of Uttar Pradesh has reported a sharp rise in attacks since 2022. Sikhs, particularly those linked to or accused of supporting the Khalistan movement, face surveillance, deportation pressure, and in some cases assassination plots abroad. India has been accused by the United States and Canada governments of involvement in the targeted killing of Sikh activists outside India. The UN Human Rights Committee in July 2024 specifically named violence against Muslims, Christians, and Sikhs as a major concern. Anti-conversion laws, formerly called Freedom of Religion Acts, are now in force in at least 12 Indian states. They criminalize religious conversion done by force, fraud, or allurement. Vague language allows police to arrest Christian pastors, Muslim clerics, and converts on accusations alone. Maximum punishment ranges from 1 to 10 years in prison depending on the state. The Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019, known as CAA, fast-tracks Indian citizenship for non-Muslim refugees from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan. The act has been criticized by the UN as discriminatory because it excludes Muslims. Triggered massive protests across India in 2020. The Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA, is India's main anti-terrorism law. Critics, including the UN, argue it is being used to detain journalists, activists, and political opponents indefinitely without bail. Pretrial detention can last years. Now the numbers. According to the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, at the end of 2024, there were just over 20,000 Indian refugees and asylum seekers living outside India, smaller than other major source countries, but rising. In addition, India hosts over 200,000 refugees on its own soil, including Sri Lankan Tamils, Tibetans, and recent arrivals from Myanmar and Afghanistan. The largest Indian refugee populations abroad are in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Germany, and Australia. Asylum applications by destination country. In the United Kingdom, Indians filed approximately 3,000 to 4,000 asylum applications per year between 2022 and 2024. The first instance grant rate has historically been low, around 15 to 20%, but cases involving Manipur ethnic violence, Khalistani Sikh persecution, or Dalit caste violence are recognized at much higher rates. In the United States, Indians have been one of the top 10 asylum-seeking nationalities for several years. In 2023 alone, over 40,000 Indians were apprehended at the US southern border. Asylum grant rates for Indians in immigration courts have ranged between 40 and 60% depending on the case category. In Canada, Indian asylum claims have risen sharply. In 2023, Canada received over 12,000 asylum claims from Indian nationals. Recognition rates at the Immigration and Refugee Board have ranged between 30 and 50%. Across the European Union, Germany is the leading destination, followed by France, Italy, and Sweden. EU average grant rates are between 20 and 40%, varying by member state and case type. What these numbers mean is simple. Indians who flee are not a small group. They number in the tens of thousands every year. And while overall recognition rates may seem moderate, cases that involve specific documented persecution, Manipur violence, Khalistan, caste-based violence, honor killing, religious persecution, succeed at much higher rates. This is the heart of the question. Asylum is granted, first of all, when the state cannot or will not protect the victim from the persecution. So, what does state failure to protect look like in India? India has a sophisticated state apparatus. It has police, it has courts, it has anti-discrimination laws, it has constitutional guarantees. So how can the state fail to protect? It fails in 5 specific ways. 1. Refusal to register cases. Police across India regularly refuse to register First Information Reports, FIRs, from Dalit victims, women victims of domestic violence, Christians reporting attacks. Without an FIR, there is no investigation. Without investigation, there is no protection. 2. Cultural complicity. In rural areas, police, judges, and politicians come from dominant castes. They often share the prejudices of perpetrators. Honor killings are often facilitated by local police. Panchayat decisions are tolerated. 3. Judicial delay. India's courts are notoriously slow. A criminal case can take 10 to 15 years to reach final judgment. By the time a verdict is delivered, the victim may have died, fled the country, or settled out of court under pressure. 4. Government denial. As the UN has documented, and as India's own response confirms, the central government denies that systemic problems exist. When the UN High Commissioner raised Kashmir and Manipur concerns, India dismissed them as unfounded. State denial means no remedy. 5. Weaponization of laws against minorities. The UAPA, the CAA, anti-conversion laws. These are increasingly used to detain critics, journalists, and minorities. The same legal system that should protect them is being used against them.
Mr. Vice President, the High Commissioner has sensed a pervasive unease, but we would submit that a key element to addressing this is a long and hard look in the mirror by the Office of the High Commissioner.
This is the official Indian government position. The UN is wrong. There is no problem. Look in the mirror. Risk on return and internal relocation. Courts sometimes ask, can you just move to another part of your country? This is called internal relocation. To explain why that often does not work for India cases. Reason 1. Caste follows you. Surname, accent, region of origin. These reveal caste anywhere in India. Internal relocation does not erase caste-based persecution. Reason 2. Family networks span the country. Honor killings are perpetrated by family members. Modern Indian families have members in multiple cities. There is no city safe from a family that wants to find you. Reason 3. Police data is shared centrally. Then India has the Aadhaar biometric ID system, covering over 1 billion people. Anyone fleeing within India can be identified at any government checkpoint, hospital, or bank. Reason 4. Laws apply nationally. Anti-conversion laws, UAPA, AFSPA, these are state or national laws. Moving to another state does not make the law disappear. Reason 5. The state denies the problem exists. If government denies the problem, no internal protection mechanism is functioning. The expert witness cannot accept or reject the applicant's testimony. That is the court's role. The expert assesses the applicant's account against the country's situation and provides a detailed conclusion on the risk of return to the country and the risk of internal relocation. In most cases, if the claimed information is accepted, internal relocation and return to the country are unsafe for this type of persecution. And if the court accepts the applicant's evidence, asylum can be granted in most cases. This is why a personal assessment of each individual case is critically important. What can happen to a person if they are sent back to India and face one of these forms of persecution? For a woman fleeing domestic violence returned to her abuser, the state will not protect her. Police will tell her to reconcile. She may be killed within months. For a Dalit fleeing caste violence, returned to a society where her surname identifies her caste. Her village waits, her caste followers wait. The SCST Act exists on paper, but conviction rates are below 10%. For a couple fleeing honor killing, return to a family that has decided they must die. Kap panchayats operate without legal accountability. Special Marriage Act registration requires public notice, which alerts hostile families. For an ethnic minority, return to Manipur or Kashmir, where ongoing violence and military operations under AFSPA are documented at the UN level. For a religious minority, return to states with anti-conversion laws, where pastors can be arrested simply for praying with someone. For a journalist or activist, return to face UAPA charges, which can mean years in pretrial detention without bail. And one more thing, the methods used in Indian persecution breach the fundamental rules of international law. They breach the 1951 Refugee Convention, particularly the principle of non-refoulement, which prohibits sending a person back to a place where they face persecution. They breach the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right to life, to liberty, to equality, to freedom from torture. And in cases that come before UK or European courts, they breach Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which prohibits torture and inhuman or degrading treatment.
States must step up efforts to adopt or strengthen laws and policies to counter gender-based discrimination and ensure accountability for violations ranging from gender-based violence to sexism and misogyny.
India has the laws. India has the institutions. What India lacks, repeatedly documented at the UN level, is implementation, accountability, and recognition of the problem. Let me summarize. India is a country where women are killed by their husbands every 10 minutes, and the state cannot prosecute consistently. Where 200 million Dalits face daily caste-based violence, and conviction rates are below 10%. Where honor killings are sanctioned by village councils, and there is no specific law against them. Where ethnic minorities in Manipur are displaced by tens of thousands, and the UN is told to look in the mirror. Where Christians, Muslims, and Sikhs face increasing pressure and anti-conversion laws expand. Freedom House rates India as partly free in 2025, a score of 66 out of 100. This is a downgrade from free status that India held until 2021. The downgrade reflects systematic concerns about civic space, religious freedom, and minority rights. If you are from India and you fled because of any of the persecution we have discussed today, your fear of persecution may be well founded under the 1951 Refugee Convention. The state cannot protect you. Internal relocation often does not work. The UN has documented the situation at the highest level. In every major destination country, the UK, the US, Canada, and across the EU, courts have repeatedly accepted Indian asylum claims involving documented persecution. Grant rates rise substantially when individual case is supported by an expert country report. What you need is an individual case assessment supported by an expert country report to demonstrate to your asylum decision maker that the country situation in your specific facts places you at risk if you have been refused appeal. The country conditions are documented at the UN level. The UN High Commissioner himself has named the problems publicly. Country expert reports can transform a case. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the Human Rights channel. Leave a comment below. Share this with anyone who needs to understand what people fleeing India actually face. And if you need a country expert report, the link is in the description. I will see you in the next episode.